Hey everybody, how are you? It's Jonathan Bowen with Hub Edge Realty, and this is my second sort of interview show. I don't know, I don't want to call it an interview. That seems way too formal. So I'm just going to call it like a talk, something easier. So today we are going to talk with a guy who I have worked with on and off for probably the last 10 years. His name is Patrick Queally. He works with Hancock Mortgage Services now, and we're going to ask him why he's changed uh, offices so many times since I've first met him. And we're going to go into some mortgage stuff. And the thing with mortgages is, at any time a mortgage broker starts telling me about their rates and they start talking to me about the products that they have, my eyes glaze over. And we are going to try not to do that today because I don't want to talk about mortgage products. So here we are. Let's try to figure this out. Let's bring Patrick on. And hello, Patrick.
Hello, John.
Why are you? Oh, there you are. You're not. Okay, now we're in split screen. Okay. All right.
I'm
Cool.
right here.
All right. So, all right, Patrick. I think we met. I think your cousin referred me to you or referred you to me, Desi.
Yeah, I think you were involved in a transaction I was doing the financing for him on, so we ended up, I guess by chance, sort of working together on that.
Yeah, right. And we used Meeting House Bank, or you used Meeting House Bank, which is no longer. Uh, it's now part of East Boston Savings Bank, I guess.
Yeah.
So as a mortgage broker, you can go to different banks, whether it be Bank of America or Citizens Bank or local banks or.
Yeah, that's really in the commercial space, where I broker out, commercial mortgage financing. So on the residential stuff, we're a direct lender. So with Hancock Mortgage Partners, we take you from application, even before application, pre-approval, all the way through to the closing table.
Well, time out. Hold on. You with Hancock Mortgage, you can go to third parties.
No, that's not what I said. No.
Well, it's not what you said, but
Yeah.
really listening.
Yeah. So
So hold on a minute. So the way when you worked for other companies in the past, you you were able to go to a bunch of different banks.
yeah. So there's different business models, John. So we are a so Hancock Mortgage is a independent correspondent lender. Okay. So what that means is we work on loan files from application, and really even before application, on a pre-approval basis, all the way through the closing table. Okay, and the consumer is dealing just with me, just with Hancock
Yeah.
Mortgage,
Okay.
from beginning to end.
Right.
And the way that the mortgage business has changed over the years, uh, there is what's called a secondary market. So that is for loan servicing. So Hancock Mortgage would originate, process, underwrite, close a mortgage loan. And once that mortgage loan is closed, it's packaged up and sold with dozens, hundreds of other mortgage loans to any number of different loan servicers. So for the consumer, what that means, really, the only change is, who you're writing the check out to. So the loan servicer that purchases that note can't change any of the terms of the contract. So your payment stays the same. It's just who you're writing that check out to monthly is
So
somebody other than Hancock.
now I'm confused. You're still okay. There are loan officers who work for banks, and then there are mortgage brokers who work for mortgage companies.
Yeah. So you've got,
So
there's a couple of different.
what are you now?
Essentially you've got, we'll say, three different business models. So business model number one is working for a retail bank. Okay, so that's the Bank of America, Citizens, whatever. They're bank employees.
Yeah, 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. On the other end of the spectrum, you have mortgage brokers. So a mortgage broker is an independent entity that has no authority to lend any funds. They cannot. Mortgage broker cannot approve, given approval or a commitment to lend. Mortgage broker is I don't want to say middleman. That doesn't sound fair, but they're basically someone that a consumer hires to go out to a number of different lenders to try to place the financing for them. Okay, so those are two different ends of the spectrum. And in the middle is a correspondent lender. Okay, so they're a little bit of a hybrid of both, in the sense that we still have to adhere to the secondary market guidelines.
But this is what you do.
That Fannie and Freddie put out, but we actually have the authority. We have the funds to lend. We close loans in our name, and after closing, they're sold on the secondary market.
So that's what you are now. You're like a hybrid.
Yes. Yep.
Is that something that's come out since the crash of 2008?
No, that's been around way before that. Yeah.
Okay. But you used to be a mortgage broker.
I used to be all of the above.
Yeah.
I've worked in all of those environments.
And why do you like this one the best now?
I think it gives me flexibility, but also a certain amount of stability. Okay, so we do business with a number of different investors on the secondary market. So there is, some different interpretations of the guidelines. So if someone with a unique situation, can't be closed and, sold in the secondary market to lender A, well, then we have a choice of working with lender B, C, D, or E. So we do have choices similar to a mortgage broker, but we also have all of the in-house, support. So the underwriter that approves the loan works for my company. We're under the same umbrella. So I'm not dealing with, an unknown third party. If there's a question or an issue, pick up the phone and speak directly to my underwriter. So we get a little bit more control over the process. Actually, a lot more.
All the way through, because I worked with some of the huge banks. I'm not going to mention their names right now, but
yep.
If you drive down the street in any town in Massachusetts, you'll see their names on the side of the road.
Yeah.
I tell my buyers to stay so far away from. One of them has a green and white logo, and one of them has a red, white, and blue logo.
Yeah, and it's really.
And I hate to say it because
it's corporate America, And
there are good people that work for those companies, but even the loan officers there, they have no control.
They're not, in many cases. So I don't want to speak for their corporate policy, but based on my experience, loan officers aren't even allowed to talk to the underwriters. Okay. They can't call them. They can't. Work through any issues that's on a file, ask questions, figure out different way to structure a transaction that may be difficult. It is, total separation of church and state. Okay, so that's where you get a lot of the, the headbutting, us versus them mentality.
Right.
They're just not working together as a team.
And as a mortgage broker, you don't even have an underwriter, and you might have a mortgage processor, I guess.
Right. Yep.
But you don't have an underwriter because you're farming that loan out to another bank. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So
a mortgage broker has no authority to lend funds. They can't issue an approval notice.
So what you're doing now, could you go to another bank even though you're working with Hancock Mortgage? Could you go to another bank if you wanted to, like a local bank, or is that prohibited?
Well, I mean, yes and no. So there needs to be... there needs to be agreements in place to be able to do that. So I'm not trying to make it sound more complicated than it is, but it's not as simple as walking into a bank with, hey, I've got a file. Can you close this for me? There has to be a business relationship that's established.
Do you have any of those?
Yeah, we have some, and not. The problem is a lot of the local community regional banks just for whatever reason don't want to have a broker relationship. They're satisfied with their own, retail loan officers that are employees of theirs, and they're just not accepting of business coming in from mortgage brokers.
Okay. All right. I get it. All right. So I was kind of thinking about, you know, uh, our impending talk today, and I was thinking, what do I want to talk to Patrick about? And I was thinking about, every time I come up with a new buyer or a buyer who already has a pre-approval letter, I always wonder, like, well, why are they with that mortgage broker? What does that mortgage broker have that another mortgage broker doesn't have? So, for instance, there's a billion trillion mortgage loan options out there for buyers, right?
Mhm.
From all the different banks. Okay. Some of the most popular ones right now are definitely FHA because of the 3.5% down payment. And Mass Housing is another one that's super popular um, in the lower end, of course. But, like, why don't you put on a sheet and say, hey, I don't have these products. Don't bother me. Like, why don't you do that? Because that would be so much easier for me. If I know that a buyer wants Mass Housing only, like,
Mhm.
I wouldn't even bother calling you.
Yeah, well, to a certain degree, no, I'm going to blow you up a little bit here. So for the most part, a consumer is not, an educated
I agree.
mortgage financing professional.
Yeah, I
Okay,
agree. Yeah.
so they may know a little bit of information about a mass housing or a bond, loan program like that, and they, simply because they heard about it or they know someone else that used that as a financing, option, that doesn't necessarily mean that's really the best fit for them.
Okay. The best fit for most buyers is the lowest payment per month with the lowest down payment.
Not always.
No, I know. I'm just playing devil's advocate. You know that. So,
Yeah. I
so
mean, the wrong, the lowest rate on the wrong financing strategy could cost you a hell of a lot more in the long run.
yeah, like an arm, which I wouldn't tell anybody to use right now.
Well, I mean, there's no such thing as a bad loan program, John. There's inappropriate uses of loan programs. Yeah,
Patrick, come on, man.
I'm telling you.
I,
Yeah,
listen. 2004, everybody was in the 100% financing, 3-1 or 5-1 arms or something like that,
yeah,
right? And they all got blown up.
yeah, because they weren't appropriate for everybody.
But what loan officer back then was saying, don't use that one? None.
Well, that's so when it comes to consumers shopping for mortgage financing, one of my biggest gripes in the industry as a whole is, mass media has trained the consumer to shop based on two factors: what's your rate and what are your closing costs.
Well, your
Okay.
APR, I guess.
Well, what I would argue is there's more to it than that. Okay, so you should really be speaking to a loan officer and interviewing the loan officer, because really what you're doing is you're hiring that loan officer to create a two, three, $400,000 debt for you.
No,
Okay, so,
listen.
so rather than just what the rate and payment is, and the closing cost, you should be interviewing that loan officer because you're hiring them to do a job for you. You got to figure out, are they reliable? Are they competent? Are they knowledgeable? And in today's market, it's not a question of if something happens and if something goes sideways. It's a matter of when it goes sideways. When something comes up, does that loan officer have the experience to be able to answer those questions, deal with that, whatever that comes up, to still successfully get you to the closing table?
Yeah.
And like you said, a lot of the larger institutions, corporate America, they don't. Many of them are inexperienced, and unfortunately, many of them just don't care.
Right. Yeah, I've had to go into two. In my career, I've gone and I always tell people to use local loan officers. And the reason I say that is because you want to be able to drive to their office and yell at them.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
like I'm serious.
Oh, I tell people that. I said, look, this is my address. This is where I live. I'm active in the community. My office is one town over from. No, I mean, because my clients are people I see around town. I bump
Yeah,
into them in the grocery store, at the ball field with the kids, and so even more so, I got to make sure that I'm doing a good job for them because out in the public, it's my reputation.
yeah, understood. So, so I just had a good experience with the mortgage broker who's out of state, um, and you know, I hate to say it, but I still probably won't refer him to any of my buyers because I still feel that a buyer needs to be able to sit down and meet with a mortgage broker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I mean, I know that we have all this kind of stuff, this new technology, but meeting somebody face to face is, I think, if you have to, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
you don't.
So it's kind of funny, John. So most of my business is repeat clients and their referrals.
Yeah,
And I have a handful of, real estate agents and CPAs and attorneys and, other, business professionals that I work with that refer business. But it's kind of funny because of the referral nature of that introduction. There's a certain amount of, I don't know, I guess trust or faith or whatever that's imparted, as part of that. And with everybody's busy schedules nowadays, I don't always meet face to face with the
right.
consumer. A lot of times with technology, they're completing the application online, they're emailing their documents in. I mean, I've got clients where the first time I've met them face to face was at the closing table.
Yeah,
So I pop by the closing, say hello and thank you, and to meet that client face to face.
right.
But I mean, my my office is open. I mean, if someone who wants to meet face to face, I got no problem with that. That's fine.
All right. So, getting into another part of this, which is something I don't think that consumers in Massachusetts know, is they have a choice of picking their own closing attorney. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But a lot of the banks have closed lists, and
Mm-hmm.
they are really particular. And I work with this. I used to work with Larry Balin. You know Larry, and he's
Yeah,
retired now, and I love him. But he doesn't want to practice real estate law anymore after 30 years because he's just tired and
yep,
he's sick of it.
yeah.
He's like
Well,
literally
well.
sick of it.
So part of that answer, John, is the attorney-client relationship. Okay, so understand that when a closing attorney conducts a closing, they represent the lender. The lender is the client in that situation, not the consumer.
So time out. So here's what just happened. I just helped a buyer with a condo in Taunton. Um, this out of state bank used Chris Law, and they did a great job. And Chris Law reviewed the purchase and sale agreement for the buyer and also represented the seller. And they are not the only they are not the only attorneys that do that.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a million attorneys do that. So, is there something wrong with that? Is that not?
Well, I mean, I think as long as everything is disclosed properly,
Yeah.
it's legal. However, I would be entirely uncomfortable with that for any client of mine
So
to
I
have an attorney represent both the buyer and the seller.
so
You know,
I know what you're saying. I do tell my buyers. I said, listen, if you allow an attorney to represent the buyer and the bank, you have to just obviously understand that there is
there's a conflict of interest, or there could be at some
there
point.
could be a conflict of
Yeah,
interest.
everything's fine until it's not.
Right. And in real estate, I don't know if you know this, I'm a facilitator only now. And
Okay.
one of the reasons I changed my brokerage's philosophy is because of dual agency, which is inherent in any brokerage, any brokerage that's not a facilitator. So if, say, you worked for uh, Remax or Keller Williams as an agent, and you have some of the franchises have they accept dual agency, which means that you can represent the seller and the buyer in the same transaction.
Mm-hmm.
I've decided to get away from the entire agency representation thing, so I don't represent buyers and sellers. I represent the deal,
Mm-hmm.
and when I do that, which is great. If I screw up, or if I'm negligent, or I'm just a jerk, and do something immoral and unethical, um, my buyers and sellers can't get sued for my actions.
Okay. So who sues?
But they can get.
So how do I sue you, John?
93A, Chapter 93A. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been sued. Not even close. So
well, it's early.
Yeah, I've only been doing it.
It's barely, what is it? It's just after 12 o'clock. So you still got time today.
Yeah, right. So what I'm saying is that dual agency in real estate is sort of that same sort of thing with the attorney.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I want to go back and clarify a point, John. So, again, while the attorney client relationship is such that the attorney is representing the lender in conducting the closing, it's true, however, that it is the buyer that pays that attorney's fee. Okay?
Right.
Now, that being said, typically, really most of the time, the attorney does represent both the lender as well as the buyer, because truly their interests are aligned. There's very rarely is going to be a conflict of interest. So what the lender wants is the same thing that the buyer wants, which is clear and marketable title to that home and no defects or deficiencies in the title. And they want all the paperwork to be signed correctly.
Right.
So, very rarely are you going to end up with a conflict of interest between the buyer and the lender, where the attorney is representing both parties.
Hey, I
think it's fairly common practice for an attorney to represent the buyer and review the purchase and sales agreement, and then also conduct the closing. I think that's very common.
I just had an awesome thing happen first time at a closing. The closing, her name was Wendy Kamens, and I have to give her, she was excellent, from Chris Law. She showed up at the Registry of Deeds in Taunton, and the stack of paper for a typical closing is like an inch thick. Hers was like 20 pages, because the mortgage broker had like 80% of the paperwork pre-signed, electronically signed. So only the really important stuff did she really need to do at the closing. I was so impressed with the mortgage broker and the attorney for that.
Yeah, so some lenders are going towards e-signatures on closing docs. It's fairly common practice for the application package now. And there are some lenders that are moving towards that for the closing docs as well.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, because the seller sits there for like an hour and does nothing, usually, right? They sign like the deed and get their check. They wait for their check.
Yeah, it's like, there's about 10, 15 pieces of paper they have to sign. That's
right. And all right, so anyway, I'm tired of talking about mortgages. No,
come on, John. This is fun.
No, I really hate talking about mortgages. It's anytime I talk to a buyer or seller, if they ask me mortgage questions, I basically just say to them, I say, no, I'm not going to answer those questions. That's not for me or you,
Yeah, you say call Patrick.
So, listen, you are one of my top 3. I only have 3.
Oh, don't give me the handout 3 cards crap.
I don't hand out 3 cards, but I do. I have some good mortgage brokers. I've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, I know.
And you never give me referrals anymore. Where are my referrals?
Where are your referrals? Yeah. All right, sure, John. Yeah.
No, actually, I since this is live, I will say that there were years that I didn't give you any referrals, because I honestly just didn't have them. Because 90% of the time now, when I meet a buyer, they're already hooked up with a mortgage broker.
Yep, that happens. That's a common. Yep.
They're getting smarter at least now. At least the buyers are going shopping for mortgages first.
Yeah, go get your financing first before you find the house.
Well, it's always terrible when they want to, oh my God, I want to make an offer on this house today. Okay, where's your pre-approval letter? I don't have one. And it's obviously Saturday afternoon.
Yep.
And the mortgage broker is, family time, or, it's a...
I get those 911 calls all the time.
I know you do. Yeah.
And it's typically someone that I have already talked to and explain the importance of having a pre-approval, and you need that letter before you make an offer. and they didn't listen. They didn't send in their paperwork, and now they have about 20 minutes in which they need to get a letter done. And well, yeah, I mean, we got to get your financials. We can't just give you a letter for the sake of giving you a letter. You know, we got to look at the financials and make sure it's legit.
Right. So, all right, let's talk about investors, people who
Okay.
flip properties.
Yep.
I do want to try to keep these at a half an hour, and we're already going 25 minutes. So,
All right.
so I like bigger pockets. I used to be a pro on that. I paid. I stopped paying.
Yep.
They have some awesome calculators on there for investors.
Yep. We got some good stuff in there. Yeah.
Yeah, fix and flip, and IRR, which I remember doing in college. Like,
Yeah.
People are starting to get smart about IRR now. It was never like that. It's how much am I paying in a more pity
Yep.
PITI, and how much are the rents, and that was that simple. Am I making money today? But now these banks that are putting up these 5 and 6 story 100-unit properties are kind of looking at it, and they're as long as they're breaking even or maybe making one or two.
Yeah, they're banking on future appreciation.
Yeah, right.
Part of it. Yeah.
So it's crazy. I think it's crazy. It's cutting out the mom and pop who wants to buy a 3-family and live in one of the units.
Absolutely. Yeah. You get the investors that are buying stuff just for break even, just looking for some place to park their money temporarily.
Yeah, right.
And they're just banking on future appreciation. Yep.
Crazy. So, all right, I got nothing else for you. You're looking for another assistant. Your last assistant.
So I'm interviewing. I do have an open position here. Yeah, it's kind of a hybrid position. It's not exactly sales. It's more sort of sales support. So ideally, the right candidate is going to have some mortgage and real estate experience, so they can help with structuring files and putting those documents together. There's also some marketing support. Not truly sales, not boots on the ground. Trying to bring business in. It's really more to support back office. The deals that I and the other loan officers here bring into the table.
So, what else do you got? I mean, we kind of talked about some basics. We talked about investors a little bit. We talked about a regular consumer mostly.
Yeah.
About the basics of a mortgage business.
Yeah. So again, I think one of the big things I'll circle back on is when a consumer is shopping for financing, it's sure, rates and fees are important, but a promise of the lowest rate in the world doesn't mean jack if you never actually get to the closing table.
Hey, you know what I forgot to ask you?
What's that?
This is actually what I want to know. I don't want to know what products you have. Like, there are a million mortgage brokers out there. Like, there are a million real estate agents out there. What makes you different? Why would somebody want to come to you rather than every other mortgage broker out there? Besides your experience and all that stuff. Like, I think real estate agents rely. I've been doing this for 20 years, or I've been doing it for 30 years. Oh, great. So you've been screwing up for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
What.
So I think
some of them are great,
John, and you've certainly experienced it in the deals that we've worked on together. It sounds just so simple, but it's really just communication.
Yeah.
So when I have a file and process with a client, we send out weekly status updates every single Friday between 9 a.m. and noon. We reach out to everybody we're working with and give them a status update. So one of the biggest challenges or complaints that both consumers and professionals have in the business is just lack of communication. So we try and get out in front of that early and often. And I do the weekly status updates, but also the major milestone updates. So when the appraisal's in, when we have your approval, when you're clear to close, so all the major milestones that your loan file hits along the way, you're also getting notified there. So typically, we're reaching out and outbound communication, reaching out to that consumer, about twice a week. But it's not just the consumer; it's also the other professionals that are involved in the transaction. So real estate brokers, the closing attorney. So while that may take some time every Friday to do that, the net result is Monday through Thursday, we're not putting out fires. We're not fielding inbound phone calls on, what's going on with this file, what's going on with that file. We're outbound communicating, telling everybody where they are and what they're, the joke I use is, here's your homework assignment for the weekend. We got to go get me another bank statement. We need another pay stub. So everybody has a clear mission as to what happens next, what they need to do. And if the consumer or the real estate agent is not hearing from you, well, they're going to make up their own story as to what's going on. And that's where a lot of panic and stress, comes into play. They just don't know what's going on. I mean, John, how often on transactions that you're not working with me on, you're going to call the loan officer looking for an update?
I'm going to give you a story. I'm going to give you two stories real quick. So maybe about 2004 and 2005, and I'm going to trash the company because it's the truth. You can as long as you're telling the truth, you can't be sued for libel or slander. Am I right? Well, you
so.
Probably be sued, but they'll lose, right?
Yeah.
So okay,
let's hope.
I'm not going to name the name of the company, but they have a big green and white logo. Okay.
Okay.
They had, I don't know if their mortgage center used to be in Upham's Corner.
Yep.
And there was this guy who worked there, and I hate to say bad things about anybody, but this was like 2004. This was like during Fax Central, faxing everything, email. So I literally was so frustrated. Maybe the financing was delayed. So I finally went into his office and I said, "What are you doing? What?" I was blowing my top. I tried.
Yeah.
I'm better now. I'm trying to control anger with all the therapy I've been in. But
yeah,
I literally blew my top. And the guy brings me in his office. He's got this big office, and he shows me all of his awards on his says, "John, look at all these awards I've won for being top producer and stuff like."
Oh, great, good for you.
And he says, "John, I like your business because you don't have to basically deal with anybody. He just wouldn't tell me what's going on with this loan. What is the problem here?" And I had to go in again, maybe 3 years ago, to the Jamaica Plain branch and yell at another guy from the same green and white company. And it was the same thing. There's just no communication between the loan. Once the loan officer at those companies, once the loan package goes to them, they're out. They have nothing. Yeah. They can't. All they can do is glad hand the buyers, and that's all they can do because they have no control from that point on.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating.
Yeah. Again, just corporate America. That's the way they've structured their operations, and it's just wrong on so many levels.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like that.
Right. So basically, we're both like a service business, really, you have to be able to get in touch with your person or forget it,
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I see the Ireland behind you. You're from Ireland, somewhere in Ireland.
Yeah, Irish flag here. So first generation. So I was born here. Both of my parents are from Ireland. We moved back, and I lived there for a number of years. Went to high school there. So part of Ireland that I lived in was in Galway, the far west coast of Galway and Connemara. So Gaelic is still the native language spoken in the home. So when I went to high school, all of my high school subjects were taught in Gaelic. The only subject taught in English was English. So it was quite the trip to complete high school studies in a foreign language.
I love Galway.
Yeah. Yeah, so Galway's a lot like Boston in the sense that it's there are a lot of colleges. It's a very sort of young population, so it has a lot of similarities to Boston.
What?
But after I finished high school there, I came back here to Boston and pursued my dream of going into the mortgage industry.
So when I was in Galway, we stayed there. It was the Olympics, the 2000 Olympics, maybe. I was during the Olympics, whatever. That's how I remember it. And we went to some beautiful bar that it was an old castle or something,
King's Head.
King's Head.
Yep.
Beautiful. And then everybody would get drunk, and then they would go to Supermax,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yep.
And man, they still had smoking there.
Yep.
And these,
Yeah. One of the only places where you need a bouncer for the fast food place.
these guys were like just cut. Like I'm standing there in line, and then these guys just come and like cut right in front of me.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, dude, what are you doing, dude? I was ready like to get in a fight at Supermax.
It's just a massive onslaught of people rush in there. Yeah. It's a mob scene. It really is.
Anyway, all right. And you live in Abington. You got 2 daughters. You're married.
Yes, all of that is true. My office is in Rockland. So again, I'm in the community here. My office is about 3 miles away from my house. So I'm active and around in the communities I serve. So I see clients out and about in the community all the time.
And somebody owned a bar in West Roxbury.
Yeah, that was my uncle. So when I came back here, after finishing school in Ireland, I actually worked for my uncle, Dennis, in his place in West Roxbury. So I, by no stretch of the imagination, am I a chef, but I would like to say I became a pretty damn good cook working there. Learned a lot. And it's still something I like doing today. So when I do have some free time, I like to put together a nice meal.
What was the name of the bar?
It was the West Roxbury Pub.
Is it still open?
No.
Oh.
My uncle passed away a number of years ago.
Yeah, I know.
They ended up selling the place. So I think it's actually changed hands twice now since that.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you for being my second victim. And hope somebody learned something.
Does that mean the interrogation is over?
The interrogation is over. Like I'm not your friend because like I get pissed at people like you all the time. So I'm here.
See, the difference is you get pissed at people like me,
right?
Not me.
That's true because like mortgage brokers, we're all just people, right? But just treat people. Just pick up your phone. Oh, by the way, my advice to you, and I never had a problem with you. I wouldn't even be talking to you if I did. When the shit hits the fan, that is the time to pick up the phone again and again and again.
Call. When there's good news, you call. When it's bad news, you call faster.
But you pick up.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone.
You have to. I mean, the only time I'm not going to answer the phone is if I'm doing an interview with somebody or I'm sitting down with another client.
I had this one mortgage broker. I sold a condo in East Boston like 2 years ago on Webster Street. When the shit hit the fan, and it did, guy was gone. He was disappeared. And I was up his ass. That is true. But I'm doing it not just for my commission, which everybody's like, oh, he just wants his commission. No, my customer who trusted me, I need to figure out what's going on for my customer.
And that's, there's always stuff that comes up in a transaction, so you can't necessarily blame the loan officer for not doing a good job up front. But I would tend to say 95% of the time, that stuff can be identified and avoided or at least mitigated if you're doing the right full job up front.
If you're looking at the guidelines for the loan.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, see, the thing is, I was previously an underwriter.
Yeah.
So I was on the underwriting and processing side for first, 10 years of my career.
Yeah.
So that gives me, I think, a little bit of a unique perspective when I'm putting a file together.
All right. I don't know the difference. You're the paperwork. The underwriter is the paperwork person, right?
No, that's the processor. The underwriter is the person that gives the final yes or no approval.
So you were an underwriter?
Yes, sir.
And everything should be fine in underwriting as long as the loan officer and the processor are doing their job.
Yeah, I mean, the underwriter really should just be, confirming the income calculations, confirming that, all the details in the file match up with what the requirements for that loan program is.
When you see when you were an underwriter and you would go to a loan officer's desk, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, how many times out of 10 did you see a little thing of like whiteout on their desk?
Oh, everybody had them. It was, yeah, it was.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
That's why everybody got pissed off, because they were all freaking, you know, forging and
Unfortunately,
faking
that
docs.
stuff was just way too common in the business. Yeah.
I'm sure it was. I couldn't believe half the people that got pre-approved when I was selling back in 2004. I'm like, that guy, how did that person get a loan? Right?
Yeah, there's so many people that got loans that never should have.
Do you think that we're starting to see that problem again?
Nah, yes and no. So, I mean, back then, they were just, the crazy products with no income verification, no asset. Do you remember the Ninja loan?
Yeah.
Yeah, no income, no asset, no job.
Those are coming back. I saw somebody advertising it.
Yeah,
Randolph.
To a certain degree, there's still just incredible stipulations to try and use a product like that. But it's not going to be as rampant as it was before.
I disagree with you. I think it's going to come back and everything's going to be great.
Yeah. Great for who?
Not. Oh, man. Anyway, listen, we've talked too long. This is 41 minutes. I always said I wanted to do this in a half an hour. So thank you so much for being my guest. If anybody likes Patrick, I got to say that I have only had good. He's one of the few mortgage brokers that I've had consistently good. Not only are we friendly with each other, we go to Revolution games with our families together, and he actually really has a. If you want to go, if you're one of his good customers, ask him for tickets and make sure that you tailgate with him, because he's got like this whole giant setup.
I do the full setup. I get the tent and
it's
grill and the whole deal.
Yeah. So, but you got to have a really big loan for that one. So, you got to be very special. But anyway, no, I will say that I've dealt with, hundreds of mortgage brokers over the years, and most of them are terrible. And I hate to just trash people, but I got to be honest.
It's an unfortunate reality of the business.
Yeah, same with real estate agents. Some are
and it's those jerks that are out there that give me a bad name, because I get lumped in with paint with the same brush.
Right. Yeah, and I'm gonna just say before, I am not perfect. I mean, I have definitely screwed up in my 19 years. So I'm talking from a glass house. But the thing is I always try to treat people. When I stopped drinking, all of my clients were like, "John, I never knew you had a drinking problem." And I'm like, yeah, you weren't supposed to know.
Yeah.
Because, that's the last thing that goes, right? Is you need that business to keep on drinking and keep on doing all the crap that you're doing, right?
Yeah, so people screw up. It's going to happen, but you got to own up to it and say, okay, hey, look, I screwed up, but here's what we're going to do to fix it. Here's the plan to get through it.
Yeah, right.
And most people screw up. They just get the ostrich syndrome, stick their head in the sand, and hope it goes away.
The way that you get business, and I think you know this, is to pick up that damn phone, because people like me will refer. And this is just sort of advice to other mortgage brokers out there. I'm not talking to you directly. If you are a mortgage broker and your deal goes south, pick up that phone every time and tell the truth. That's it. They're going to hate you at the point. They're going to worry, but at least they'll respect you.
Yep.
Right? That's it. Yep. And you might have a shot at actually business again if you keep on picking up that phone and take a lot of crap. So, all right.
That's part of the job, man.
I know. I'm trying to get you off the phone here.
All right. Yeah, I got to run. I got an appointment coming up soon. So
okay. All right.
Let's cut it here.
All right. All right. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Thanks, man. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.